Welcome, everyone. Excited to have you back. This is the fifth spotlight in the series. We're just finalizing some details on the April session, and we'll be in touch with more information on that shortly. But in the meantime, we are here today with Mark Moriarty and CJ Ganza with the City of New Britain. Mark is the Director of Public Works, and CJ is the Engineering Project Manager and Traffic Operations Manager. So they're going to talk to us today about their bike network, how they got started, and how far they've come and where they're headed in the future. So I think, Mark, you're going to kick us off, correct?
I'm going to get us going. Okay.
Great.
So again, I'm Mark Moriarty. I'm the Director of Public Works in New Britain. Been with the city going on 17 years. CJ, next slide. CJ's running the show on the slides here, so I've got a lot of faith in him. Okay.
Pressure's on.
I know, the pressure's on. Hope I didn't piss him off the past couple of days. But so I guess this is kind of fitting. It didn't really occur to me that we've actually been at this 10 years now, which is, kind of monumental, and it's a significant amount of time. And it's kind of been it's been enjoyable getting ready for this presentation, just kind of forcing us to take a 10-year snapshot of what we accomplished. We titled it 0 to 50, the presentation, and that's kind of in line with the 50 miles of infrastructure that we have that accommodates cyclists, everything from bike lanes, multi-use trails, and actually just some areas of wider paved shoulders. And we'll go through a host of things, and there is a lot to talk about. So next slide. Okay, 2012. I'm just gonna get you how we got started on this. And it really came down to CT Fast Track coming into town. New Britain's an economically depressed community. We needed to figure out, honestly, it was like, how do we leverage our best opportunities from Fast Track coming into town? And we started, go to next slide, please. Okay, and the big thing with like $500 million development like Fast Track coming into your town, you start reading about transit-oriented development and the need, if you want to have transit-oriented development, of having a vibrant, walkable, bikeable community. And that really started us thinking about complete streets really as our method for making the downtown area more livable. It's already walkable. It honestly needed a facelift in terms of aesthetics. It did need some things about walkability in terms of overbuilt intersections and things like that, but it really got us thinking about complete streets. And when we started thinking about complete streets, the discussion went into bike lanes. So we started thinking about accommodating bike lanes in the downtown area. Next slide. This was my question initially. Maybe I overthought it, but we were having a couple of bike lanes downtown. Like, where the heck are these bike lanes going to go to? What are you going to do when you get past the downtown? So next slide. Actually, and there was this other factor when you really started thinking about cycling in any community, but especially economically disadvantaged communities, there's just like a real need for cycling. There's a fair amount of cyclists on your streets. They're not doing it for recreational purposes. It's just like it's an inexpensive means of transportation, but really started thinking of this need to accommodate cyclists more safely, as it is for a lot of reasons, but just because really there's a fair amount of cyclists that are out there. And next slide.
Keyboard's not working right.
Okay. And it probably doesn't hurt that's something I'm just generally interested in. I've been an avid cyclist for 30 years. That's my bike one day commuting in on the Beehive Bridge. Actually, this one, just to give you we Bike New Britain, I think during COVID, when you couldn't really do a lot of activities related to bike events. So I think they had a bike lean. So you were charged in the month of May, National Bike Month, to lean your bike and take a picture of it and post it to their Facebook page on some New Britain landmarks. So that's that picture. But I think it's just like, I would guess a fair amount of us on this Zoom probably do some cycling, and it just like, it was an interesting thing to me. So next slide. So 2012, we're doing the downtown master plan, but then we took on a second master plan, and it looked at bicycle connectivity. Citywide also looked at traffic calming, which a lot of times can be one and the same. But next slide. And we had a goal. So we wanted bicycle connectivity citywide. We wanted enough options to have north, south, east, west, and connectivity central options. We wanted to make sure we had good connectivity no matter where you are, and priority of connecting downtown, schools, and city parks. New Britain's got a very robust parks system. There's some beautiful parks all over the city, and we wanted to make sure from different neighborhoods you could connect to these parks. So next slide. Wish I had some pictures from back then, because it was actually as a pretty monumentous part of, it was the start of a lot of things that happened. And but we started getting together at the downtown district office, and got together a group of local cyclists. First time, honestly, we actually met some of those cycling advocates in the city, and there's people like Cliff Barker, Mark Hoffman, Bruce Miller, who had been doing work, and like pretty tremendous work in New Britain for going back to over 30 years at that time. We weren't even aware of that at the time. So we started working with them, and when we looked at developing routes, they really led the charge. They were out there riding their bikes around, figuring out what the best way and what streets we should be picking to connect to the things that we wanted to pick. And in the master plan, we developed this map that you see. That taking that initial step and doing this planning exercise was incredibly valuable. We're still implementing some things from this 2000, and the plan was finished in 2013, but we're still implementing things that happened from that to this day. Most of the plan has been implemented, but it's if there's some things we'll be presenting on that are still in progress. And working with those advocates, it really started this relationship with this is pre-break Bike New Britain. It started us working with these advocates that later went on to become Bike New Britain. We were helped with the formation of Bike New Britain. Now these guys are a nonprofit that owns a bike shop, a community bike shop downtown. So it was a start of this. Next slide. Okay. So in complete streets, and we're not going to really get on this much, but so we started this journey in 2012. To date, we've done $40 million worth of projects, not all complete, but we have $40 million of projects in the works. A lot of them have been these downtown projects that are kind of more notable, I guess, like the Beehive Bridge and some other ones. But today we're focusing on the bike aspect of our complete streets work, which is, I think, some of the most fun and some of the things I think really are helping improve the quality of life in the city. And that little bottom one, the $150,000, which I think it could actually be less than that. That's the stuff that's going to get a lot of our discussion today. And mile for mile, that investment in terms of making streets complete has had more impact than like the over $41 million that's shown on here. These are some small projects that were inexpensive and have had a tremendous impact. So while we spent a lot of money on complete streets, a lot of our biggest impact was done at a low cost. Okay, next slide. And next, CJ is going to take over on this part.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So basically, I'm going to run through kind of a little more paint on the ground on the road aspect of how we got this going. Because as Mark pointed out, we came up with this great plan, and I hear from other municipalities, they reach out and say, how did you get started? Like, okay, so you have to have a plan, but you don't have to wait till your plan is complete to get started. or have a holistic approach to implementation. And I'm going to walk through that a little bit, how we took our strategy is a little different than maybe some other municipalities, and how we really got it going. And I think we did it successfully, and slow, but sped up so fast that it was pretty cool. I just happen to like this photo here. And it literally is where the bike lane starts, the town line here. Favorite photo of mine. So back in 2014, the master plan was completed in 2013-ish. And so about 2014, we really went out there. I don't know the exact mileage, I apologize for that, but we really went out there and started laying out bike lanes and sharrows, right? So my intent here is to go back for like our overall strategy, and I'll work on some specific projects. But the first year or two, we really focused on the easy stuff. Our attitude was, don't give anybody a reason to be against doing this. So what that meant was we ended up with a lot of segments, right? We didn't challenge on-street parking. We didn't challenge motor vehicle lanes. We didn't want to do the reduction. We took the easy stuff, right? Let's build momentum before we get the negative and then get a no from anybody. So fast forward a couple of years later, we got our initial build out, was pretty good. We started what we call our second wave of projects, right? We still had some other stuff. The master plan, or the bikes connectivity plan, still isn't complete yet, but we're well on there. We started filling in a lot of gaps that were left from the first stuff. We did the easy stuff. Now we started moving on to just a little bit more challenging stuff. I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but if we look at the previous screen, we see some gaps here, right? Here's a great bike lane on Black Rock Avenue. It didn't connect to anywhere, right? It's a great facility. Well, now we filled in those gaps. We started working on filling gaps like that. We started looking at where else can we put stuff, and a lot of this coincided with our mill and pave projects. Every time we mill and pave a road, we say, gee, does a bike lane belong in there? It should be a bike route, either a shared roadway, a bike lane, buffer bike lane, what's the most appropriate, or it's not. In some cases, it's not. And I will add too, when we decide what roads to mill and pave, we do consider bike routes as a factor. It's not necessarily the driving factor, but we say, all right, hey, this road's in bad shape, and X road and Y road are both bad shape. We're might pick the one with the bike lane, just to help the cyclists improve the quality of our bike facilities. So around this time too, I'll point out, we started seeing more recreational riders in the city, in and throughout the city. And again, it's a judgment. It did appear there are more recreational cyclists, more of the spandex class, as opposed to people commuting out of need. So it was pretty nice. We started to see some benefit and really helped motivate. As Mark said, he's an advocate cyclist. I became one. I was a cyclist before. I became more of an avid cyclist working here. It's contagious. It really is. And seeing this come in, we'd organize an after work ride, a bunch of us, and once or twice a week we go out and ride just into Britain for, we try to get 20 miles in. It was pretty cool. It's pretty cool, the transformation at this point. So a couple more years later, around 2018, so we continued our second wave of projects. It was about 3 or 4 years after we started kind of completed, maybe we could say we completed the easy stuff, but we started taking on a little more challenging projects. We didn't necessarily challenge on-street parking or some other major hurdles to come in here. We still don't want to get a no. We still don't want to have any negativity with our bike lanes, but we started maybe poking at that a little bit, just to kind of give a sense of our motive thought at a high level here. And we committed to connecting all the schools and parks at this point. And we started off pretty well initially with our initial push, but now it's like, all right, all these harder gaps in our system, in our bike network, let's figure it out. Let's figure out how to connect the schools to the parks, to downtown, to CT Fast Track, which is now open. And it was our first multi-use trail in the city. And let's make this connection, let's make it a bigger network. Let's really focus on that. So we did start to pivot. In 2021, I won't say we felt, we our on-road network was pretty complete. And that's not saying that we don't continue to evaluate and add, upgrade, modify, but the focus really shifted from upgrading our facilities. If it's a shared roadway, can we put a bike lane there? Can we take our bike lane and make it a buffered bike lane? Can we take our buffered bike lane and make it an off-road facility? So that's kind of where we are now, still in 2022 now. But it really started 2020, 2021. We really started pushing and finding money for projects to really build our off-road facilities, which we'll talk about a little later. But then we're really upgrading our on-road stuff. So back to our first projects, we threw sharrows down on the road. It's kind of easy stuff. We didn't just willy-nilly put them down. We went back to our study, identified those roads, varied from it. We kind of did another evaluation, say, all right, well, why not add this in as well? We see cyclists on there. Why don't we add that? I think we took a different approach with sharrows. I live in a different town, and I had a discussion with the public works director in this other town saying, why don't we put sharrows on this particular road? Because I'm a cyclist. I noticed a lot of cyclists there. And the response I got was, well, the road doesn't necessarily qualify. It's only 20 feet wide, so I don't want cyclists there. Well, the cyclists are already on the road. The cyclists are on the road. The sharrows give the notification to the motorists more so. The cyclist knows they're on the road. They know there's going to be vehicles on the road, but the motorist doesn't necessarily know that there's going to be a cyclist on the road. So let's make that awareness. And needless to say, it got shot down in this other town, but that was kind of our approach with sharrows. It's not, the cyclist knows he's there. Well, let's give the motorist a notification or cyclists on the road. So we added a lot of share the road signs. We added sharrows on the road. It's kind of, we consider this part of the easy stuff. There's no opposition. It's other than getting a lot of questions on what's that symbol on the road? What does that mean? There's no harm. It didn't impact anybody. So it was easy. It's easy stuff. Another example of a shared roadway, which we didn't elect to install sharrows, is this Farmington Avenue is a major north-south corridor from downtown all the way up to the north end of the city. It's a major road, a major artery for motor vehicles and cyclists as well, I think. I think it was one of Mark's commute routes. And so we decided it's an underutilized parking lane. Rather than challenge the parking, especially early on, it's still this way. It's an underutilized parking lane. Why not call it a bike lane, but not notify it? Because if we start making it a bike lane and the residents are going to start resisting, even though they don't park there, that one time they're going to want to park, they want to have that ability to park there. So why challenge that? Why get the negativity? Why have people say no and we turn against us when, here's a facility. So we throw up a sign, but we place the signs sporadically through Farmington Avenue. And so that basically, a resident can't complain about it. You still have your parking when you need it, but yet it's really an underutilized on-street parking that acts as a bike lane. So it was a huge decision on our part to not challenge the stuff and have somebody turn against this whole thing and really start squashing our push for a better bike network.
But this was a road that also, Farmington Avenue is one that didn't have shoulder striping. So just adding the shoulder striping made a big difference for cycling.
Right.
Which we've done a lot of places.
Right, and as Mark's pointed out, so without the pavement markers, the shoulder lines, a motorist might be driving in the space in the middle of the double yellow to the gutter. So now we kind of push the motorist over to where they should be driving with 11-foot lanes and gave an 8-foot parking lane, which becomes a bike lane when there's no cars in it. And occasionally there are cars.
I do ride this one a fair amount, and it made such a huge difference just having the shoulder striping compared to not, just for having a better defined area for vehicles. So it doesn't always have to be we do try for more than this now with most of the things we do, but even just the shoulder striping makes a huge difference.
Right.
Keep going, CJ.
All right.
Yeah, and one quick thing, CJ, there are just a couple of questions coming up in the chat, and I think you're addressing them, but they're just wondering about, roadway widths, original right-of-way widths, and kind of how you've been doing that. So as you move through these slides,
Sure.
I think it'd be helpful to share those sorts of things, narrowing, 11-foot
Sure.
length.
Everything we're going through in these first projects, and we get to the second wave projects, is all within the existing right-of-way, all on the pavement. There's no construction, if you'll call it that. It's just paint or epoxy we'll use on the road. So the road widths vary significantly. So here's a good example, right? So Myrtle Street, this connects a low-income housing development area to downtown, right? One of our highest users right here. We'd see cyclists very frequently on the sidewalk or on the road, but driving on the wrong side of the road, perhaps with the bike. But here's a huge need. So why not put a bike lane in here? I don't know the exact width of the road on across Myrtle Street. Can you guys see my cursor when I move it? Okay, so the road width here, I would say it's, I don't remember. I want to say it's about 32 feet, I think. So I don't remember the exact lane width, but we did lane width of the bike lanes. So we have, if you look at the before picture here, there's no shoulder lines in here, right? There's no parking permit on this road. So our attitude was, why not put a bike lane here? It doesn't impact anybody. Again, we started with the easy stuff to build momentum. Why not stripe this bike lane in here and put the bike symbols in with our signage? It didn't impact anybody because we're not eliminating parking. It was already prohibited. So we striped 11-foot lanes. It's our standard in the city. Maybe with a few exceptions here and there, 10-foot turn pockets, or on a major truck route might be 12, but it's generally our standard's 11. And I believe this bike lane's 5 feet here. So it's perfectly adequate width. And you know what? It worked. We see people riding Myrtle Street all the time. Again, it's a low-income housing near Stanley Works to our downtown, where it's an employment center, and now CT Fast Track. So someone commuting via bike, we just made it that much safer for them. And it was easy. So the attitude was, why not? Another good example is Black Rock Avenue. Again, up the before picture, no shoulder line striped. The downside to this road is it's out by Tilcon. There's a lot of truck traffic picking up asphalt, stone, whatever, and they do utilize Black Rock Avenue. So why not put our shoulder line in, a bike lane, and push the traffic where they should be? And I believe this is currently striped for 12-foot lanes because it is heavy truck traffic. And I think when we mill and pave this in a few years, or we have a trail project coming in, we might reduce the lanes to 11 feet anyway, because a triaxle truck doesn't need more than 11 anyway. So why not put this bike lane in here? As I said before, this was an initial push or roadway that really went nowhere. So it was a segment that didn't start and end anywhere. But if we waited until we had all the kinks worked out, it wouldn't be there. So start with the easy stuff, and then it forces you to make the connections. And that was kind of our attitude as we started with a lot of these projects. Another one, I'm gonna example after example of just do the easy stuff. This is Paul Manafort Drive, Senior Drive, right outside campus, Central Connecticut State University, CCSU campus. So you said before, had a faded double yellow line, no shoulder lines. So why not stripe? There's no parking permitted here, by the way. So why not stripe in a shoulder line and put a bike lane in there? Why wouldn't you do it? It's right alongside campus. Give all the students that are commuting via bike a safer road. I think this is about due for an upgrade because we don't go through an intersection with our dotted lines, and we could always make some improvements. So once we mill and pave, we'll adjust that. We make the presence of the bike lane a little more known. I think it's a 4-foot stripe. We first started, we made a few, not errors, but we learned as we went. So this might be a 4-inch line instead of a 6-inch line. So we will fix those things as we mill and pave, or as these wear out and we restripe it, we'd go, with the better stuff as we learned. Another one of our favorites, I think, for Mark and I. So Eddie Glover Boulevard. It's a boulevard style road with a 14 to 16-foot median down the middle. The before picture here, you can see there were no pavement markings. There was no allocated space in this road for anybody. Sometimes it was a 2-lane road with people passing each other. Sometimes it was a single-lane road with somebody driving down the middle with a cyclist in there. So why not stripe it? In this segment of the road, there's no on-street parking, but a lot of the street on-street parking is permitted. So there's other cases where we, instead of a buffer bike lane, we have the parking lane with the bike lane out here next to traffic. But by just allocating the space, the traffic calming and the organization of the road was so much better. The vehicular traffic's out here. We get a nice safe buffer, and we have our bike lane. It was kind of a why not? It didn't change anything, so why not do it? This is great. It connects to Park. It's up by Central Campus. It connects to our Stanley Quarter Park, to some other stuff, and it's a major route in our bike network. And here's the same road up the road a little bit by the park in front. Like, it goes to show, right, there are many users for our bike lanes too. And Mark, you want to add to this one?
Yeah, I mean, in this case, I think I've seen these people. I took that picture, a better quality one, but couldn't find it this morning, so we just threw in this one. But there is a sidewalk on the other side of the road, but people are going to walk wherever their closest route is. This woman and her kids live just up the street from Stanley Quarter Park, which is one of our major parks in the city. And I've seen her many times, like with 2 kids on her bikes and pushing a stroller. I've seen her actually doing the same thing, and then actually with her dog too. And she feels, we provided her this area where she feels safe, walking to the park, in a very low cost way we did it. And so we do bike lanes. Bike lanes are about providing bike infrastructure. But when you start talking about buffered bike lanes and a little higher level infrastructure, I mean, it's also a very inexpensive pedestrian facility too. So, yeah.
Right, we just added, but the buffer, we separated by 6 feet the vehicular traffic to a pedestrian walking here with their kids and made it that much safer. You know, granted, it's not, there's no positive protection, but there's a buffer. What a big difference. So some more examples of our first bike lanes. This is some of them, a variety of stuff. Well, I want to point out, so one thing, right, it's one thing we learned, Shuttle Meadow Avenue here in the middle up top. We repaved this road and we took away the bike lane. We decided this is really substandard. It got down to probably about 3 feet in some spots, and just felt it probably wasn't the best option, because if you're in this bike lane, you're still going to get buzzed by somebody, and the motorist isn't, even though they have to give you 3 feet. We just felt that maybe it wasn't the best, because not every motorist is now going to give you the space because there's a bike lane. So this is a case where we undid what we did, because we just, you know, we went a different direction and made a decision to make it a shared roadway in both directions now. Orange Street parking is permitted on the south side, not on the north side. We squeeze it in because that was our attitude. Like, well, a 3-foot bike lane is better than not having it. Well, we're questioning that now, and say, you know, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But some of our bike lanes downtown here. So here, I have to say, is a huge example of immediate success. So here's our John Downey Drive. It's a major business park in the southeast corner of the city. 4-lane roadway, high speed, a lot of complaints from the police department, high speeds, drag racing at night. It just didn't work. Not bicycle friendly, nor pedestrian friendly. All the sidewalks are adjacent to the roadway. Didn't feel comfortable. The speeds were horrendous. So we converted it, probably more for traffic calming, but also for bike lanes, because here's another bike lane that didn't really go anywhere at first in the initial. You know, this is our second wave project now, so we started challenging the lanes. We converted the 4-lane high speed, even though it's posted 25-mile-per-hour limit, to a 3 lanes plus bike lanes, the 2-way left turn lane in the middle. And I have to say, right, traffic calming, it worked. I was pretty nervous about it because one of the first times we challenged lanes. I think I ate my lunch out there every day for the 2 weeks after we made this change, watching traffic and seeing the immediate impact where motorists were going so much slower. And the immediate feedback was great. You know, the one downside is a lot of motorists don't know how to drive a 2-way left turn lane. So I saw the professional drivers pulling in when they make their left turn, but other people would be parking and stopping in the travel lane and crossing over until they got the hang of it, until they learned. They saw professional drivers, UPS drivers and such, figuring this out. And I'll say immediately got feedback from the police department how the speed reduction was less. It was lowered immediately. And very next day after we implemented this change, I got a phone call from someone that works in one of these buildings and didn't identify where, saying thank you. So, you know, all right, well, you're welcome. Well, you know, what exactly did you like? So, well, now I feel comfortable riding my bike to work every day. It was like, and here's one that we weren't, with the main driver wasn't for a bike lane, but the immediate impact, it was really good. You know, you get these little wins and it's like, yes, that helps me stay motivated to do the next one. And as Mark and I will point out, you know, we saw the success here. We have another project that's going to upgrade this to a separated facility.
Yeah, and just like going back to that last slide and this slide, a lot of times when we're putting in bike lanes, it's a traffic calming thing. When we did it on Columbus Boulevard, that was done primarily as part of, it's kind of like bike lanes are part of our Complete Streets toolkit. And they're one aspect of trying to deal with slow traffic speeds. Next slide is something we actually did do part of this project. This is something we didn't do this lower part yet, but Alexander Road, what we're looking at here it's a fairly long downhill road, and the bike lanes that we put in here, including the buffered bike lanes, we actually do have bike lanes on here right now. And actually there was funny, it's one of our first ones we put sharrows on initially, but the bike lanes are really part of our traffic calming mechanism. You see street trees in there, adding a vertical elements, important for complete streets too. We'll be doing some narrowing, but you know, sometimes it's not just about like, there's a lot of bicyclists on this road. It's just like, we're trying to slow down traffic and create a more livable environment. And that's part of creating a more livable environment and help improve the quality of life in the city overall.
Right. So another example of lane reduction. This is a Columbus Boulevard, divided two-direction roadway, 2 lanes each side, with turn pockets at the intersection. So another point is, when you look at capacity of your roadway, it's really the intersections are your limiting factors. So if we already have the turn pockets at the intersections and that's the control for your capacity of a roadway, the mid-block capacity is double, if not more. You're double the capacity. So why not put in this case here, that it certainly wasn't warranted for 2 through lanes the whole way on Columbus Boulevard. So we did a road diet, allocated space here for motor vehicle, put a buffer and a bike lane along on the inside. So it was kind of like a why not when you have this excessive roadway. But a funny story with this one, right? This is our dedication to this, and we wavered, but we couldn't be more happy that we did this. I'm very involved with all the layout of pit markings. I'm out there with the paint can, pulling string, and I don't know if you guys know, when you do this, you have to eradicate your old paved markings as needed, and you string out, basically you draw string and you spray it out with spray paint what you want your new paved markings to be. I get very involved with our contractor that comes out to do this for us. So I'm out there, we're laying out, I don't know, I can't remember the year mark, but we're laying Columbus Boulevard out. I'm up, started at the south end, I'm almost done, and we're all the way up by City Hall. And Mark comes out of the parking garage by City Hall, and he sees me out there, he pulls over and say, "How's it going?" I'm like, "I don't know, Mark, I don't know. I just don't know if this is the right call. Like, I don't know. Maybe we should pull the plug." He goes, "Maybe we should, you know, before we actually spray this, like this just might not work." So he goes, "All right, well, make the call. If you need to pull the plug, put it back." Right? So he drives away. I start walking over to our contractor saying, "All right, let's hold on a second. We need to rethink. Even though we're almost done laying this out, we got to rethink this." And the phone rings. I see it's Mark. He pulled over down the road, probably about a half mile. He goes, "This is freaking awesome. Don't change it. Go with it." Okay. So we did. And you know what? I don't think we looked back from that day. It was like, it's crystal clear in my head, that whole scenario here. It's like we stuck with it. And we see a lot of cyclists on this road, commuters and recreational cyclists. Not a huge segment, but it goes right into our downtown. So it's pretty good. I'm glad we stuck with it. Since then, we've milled and paved Columbus Boulevard, and we put it back, and we included some intersection treatments too. So
there's something worth talking about. And as the implementation happened, so when we did that first plan in that map I showed earlier, that was our cyclists and looking at roads that were really bike friendly, the most bike friendly roads before infrastructure was put in place. As we started doing the implementation, they would have never picked a road like Columbus Boulevard as something that should be part of our bike routes, because they weren't really thinking about how it would be after we put in a buffered bike lane. So as our network developed, it really changed a lot, because putting in buffered bike lanes and things really dramatically changed what was considered to be a great bike route or not.
Right, good point.
CJ, a couple of questions are coming up in the chat regarding kind of the trade-off with parking spaces. I know in your first wave projects, you were saying you were doing the quick wins, right? The
Right.
easy stuff. As you moved into the second wave, did you start having more competition between parking and wanting to put in bike facilities? And like, if so, how did you guys handle that?
Great question. And no, we didn't really challenge parking. We still stayed away from it. We wanted to build more momentum. This is when we started to see more ridership, you know, cyclists on the road. And I think we're still to a level have that attitude where we don't have the ridership we want to really support that and challenge parking. Although we want that mentality, we have that mentality, but not everybody does. I think we recognize that. So we're very cautious. We've challenged a little bit as we'll get into some more recent projects maybe, but in general, we didn't challenge the parking yet, but we did challenge motor vehicle lanes.
We did Alexander Road. Somebody had put in the chat. I mean, that one was one we were going to eliminate
Right.
parking on one side of the road for the length. There wasn't much parking demand there, so it was a smart move, and we didn't go out to the public with it yet, but we were going to explain to them a lot of the complaints here about speeding. We came up with a plan to address speeding, but it was going to eliminate parking along one side. So this lower section hasn't been implemented yet, but that was what we were thinking there about eliminating parking. So,
right.
Thanks.
So here's another cool project. This is Pine Street. It's a feeder into the high school. Pine Street's a big hill going down, going with the bike lane direction here. It's a one-way road. It's an old two-way road that can convert to a one-way road. But being out there is, I observed so many, not just cyclists, but skateboarders, people walking to school, walking down the wrong way of the road. And plus, I think we had parking on the wrong side of the road. The east side on this side, right side of the screen is residential pretty much the whole way. And this side here is all wooded, the whole side. So parking was on the left side of the road. So when they parked a car, they would open up into the wooded section and have to walk across the road anyway to get to their house if they're parking there. So we kind of undid that. We put the parking on the right side of the road. This is towards the intersection, but the whole stretch, the sharrows are placed out more in the center of the road. And we implemented a contrafill bike lane where we allocated a 6-foot space. It's signed for do not enter except for bikes. It's got all the appropriate signage as you're pulling in. But we gave a dedicated space and kept the motorists out of there for cyclists and, be honest, more skateboarders at this time, but going to school. So we gave them more of a safe route to get there. It was a little bit challenging because this was probably the first or second contraflow bike lane in the state. I think New Haven beat us maybe right about the same time. So it wasn't technically permitted yet, but we saw the need. So here we are. We took the approach like there's a need for this, right? And maybe this is our best way to fix the problem. So we did it, and it didn't really change anything other than fix the parking issue. The parking was on the wrong side. We still don't see any wrong way motorists coming down here with the double yellow here. It's stripped very tight, 6 feet, with all the appropriate signage. So I think it was a nice win. Again, it's just we challenged a little bit. We went outside the box a little bit on this one. So moving forward here, some of the more recent projects, it's more of the same, and I'll pick up the pace here a little bit. But so El Grasso Boulevard, this is on the north side of the central campus, 4-lane roadway, divided with a median here, probably about a 12 to 14-foot median. Volumes don't warrant having 2 through lanes, so we converted it to a vehicle lane, buffered bike lane. It's a huge win. So now on both sides of campus, we have nice bike lanes, buffered bike lanes on one side and typical conventional bike lane on the other. As we'll explain this a little bit more, this is a major connection into one of our parks in trail connections as we are looking to upgrade this in the future. We also started looking at intersection treatments, right? Very often it became, in our early thinking was like, all right, don't let the intersection, if we have a mile-long bike road or half-mile bike lane with an intersection in the middle, don't not put the bike lane in because you can't deal with the intersection. Unless it was a complete unsafe and it just wouldn't work. It'd be too high risk. So we would often end up with a situation like this. The bike lane ends and it's a shared turn pocket with a shared roadway, and then the other side might be a bike lane. Well, we converted it into different spots where we had the right of way here. We shifted the double yellow over, basically from the CMIS, move it over 5-6 feet. We put the bike lane in here all the way through the intersection and then separated the turn pocket. I mean, it was a pavement marking only, so it didn't cost that much. And if it doesn't work, we can undo it. I mean, we have eyes on mill and paving this section of roadway in the next few years. So if it doesn't work, when we mill and pave, we won't put it back. We'll look at some other treatment, but I think this is a huge win. But as I mentioned, you can't always provide the bike lane through intersections. This is El Grasso Boulevard by the Student Center for Central. The bike lane comes in, we have the attitude now, instead of just ending it, let's make sure the motorist is aware that the cyclist is going to be now sharing that space with you. So the bike lane ends, we added our dotted transition line, and then the turn pocket starts with sharrows through here. It's kind of our best. It's the best we could do. We have signage now that's installed, yield to bikes, the appropriate regulatory signage. So our approach is now let's upgrade. And this is one of the ways to upgrade. We installed RFBs at a few locations, trail crossings. This happens to be the CT Fast Track Multi-Use Trail over on East Street, crosses over. It's a moderate speed roadway, even though it's posted for 25, the average speed is probably over 35. So it's not high speed, but it's higher speed. So let's give some more awareness of this crossing. And I think this is absolutely one of my favorite series of slides right here. This is right downtown. It's our first complete streets projects area. Chestnut Street and Main Street are new police stations right here. So it's about 3 blocks from City Hall. City Hall's up north. This is the before, truly before picture, right? After the police station is built, it's actually not exactly before, because we already started doing complete streets in front of the City Hall here. This used to be even wider. And we converted it with our first real complete streets project. So if you look at the difference in the pedestrian crossing distance with these bump outs, going from that intersection to that intersection, huge difference. Much more pedestrian friendly. And no bike lane facilities. I have this show faded pavement markings, but no bike facilities. We added in bike lanes on Main Street as one of our corridors. Okay, pretty good. You know, but the difference from this before to this after, I think, is huge. And it speaks like one of the best intersection road diets we've done to really help pedestrian crossing. And then we milled and paved downtown. So we decided, let's add in our treatments through the intersections. We added our dotted lines with some chevrons to really let the motorists know there's cyclists going through the intersection as well. So we kind of learned, we added bike lanes here on, Chestnut Street that continue now. And we're continuing to build that out again. So we had that approach. Why not? We have the roadway width here. Why not put a bike lane in here? It works. There's cyclists there. Why not do it? And then our most recent addition to this is we said, all right, that's good. We really want to up our game. So we added in a green treatment through the intersections. Makes a huge difference. I think a lot of people at first were like, what is this green stuff through the intersection? It does help. We have the bike symbol through it and the approaches to the intersection. But I mean, what a difference to transformation that we said we wanted to do and then did through this intersection. And there's multiple intersections downtown that have this green treatment here. You know, it's pretty cool. And I know even within City Hall here in our department, people are asking, what are we doing this for? And they come in, we install them, they're super bright. It's like, it's just obnoxious. They do fade down a little bit. They get a little bit dirty, but it's a thermoplastic. So we don't have to, the maintenance is very low level. It'll probably last just as long as the roadway pavement will. So it's not low cost, but it's low maintenance treatment. We'd love to do bike lanes solid, but the cost, I think we'd have a better impact spending that money on other stuff, but then use the intersection treatments where they see fit. So I think we have 5 intersections downtown, and as we expand, we'll keep adding in, as we mill and pave and have good pavement, we'll keep adding in intersection treatments, the green bike lanes. So that's kind of all I have as far as like project specific, like paint on the ground. Any questions about stuff we've gone through so far?
We probably should, CJ, we're already 48
Yep.
minutes in. We should probably just blow through the rest and take questions.
Yep.
Okay.
Mark, go ahead.
Next slide. Okay, so CJ focused on our on-road network, and I think when you're looking at CJ's presentation, you see early on, we're looking at just basic bike lanes. And then as his presentation went on, you could see we're moving towards buffered bike lanes. And that's what we really try and put in place. We're trying to separate, as we're 10 years into this now, we're really trying to separate cyclists and people, the vulnerable users, from traffic. And even more so than the buffered bike lanes, we're really having a focus on building a multi-use trail network. So that's been something, even in our initial bike plan 2013-12, we had that in there. It wasn't a thought. I didn't know if we thought it was something we could accomplish even at that point in time. So next slide. I mean, obviously the multi-use trail network is just like they accommodate less confident riders. Even the best on-road infrastructure, it still typically is going to attract confident riders. And the multi-use trails just provide so much more for the passive recreation, dog walkers, health benefits. I mean, it's And in an urban environment, getting this connection into nature for some of our multi-use trails is just an added benefit. So they just provide so much more. Next slide. So we put this together just today, actually, and it's not the best image. We're going to work on it, but it kind of shows some of the project areas that I'm going to talk about, and it shows the multi-use trail network that we're in the process of putting in place. Shown on here are the CT Fast Track multi-use trail, Beeline Trail I'm going to be talking about, our Stanley Loop Trail, and then a trail along John Downey Drive and El Grasso Boulevard, which are two of the roads that we already converted and CJ already talked about. Okay, keep going. Stanley Loop Trail was actually one, go to the previous one. Yeah, not the best slide for it, but this project was a loop multi trail that was in our original bike plan. It basically starts, I mean, now it starts at CCSU campus, goes through AW Stanley Quarter Park, crosses Lake Road into a totally undeveloped, it's part of AW Stanley, but it's just really a big wooded area, really has no use right now. And then connects to AW Stanley Park, where we did have a nature trail, and we just did like I think almost a $7 million park renovation project. So this was our attempt at getting multi-use trail to provide the community a bike infrastructure that anybody could use, families you could use. It wasn't just transportation related, even though it does connect over to the mall area, which was nice, and some connects a lot of residential neighborhoods. It was really just a multi-use trail, like a natural environment. But then next, go 2 slides in, CJ. Well, we just kept thinking, and actually we formed more partnerships as we're going down this road. Tim Malone from Krog, who we work with Krog all the time, he had this idea as they were looking at closing the Plainville gap of the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail. Why don't we look at trying to close the gap between the Fast Track multi-use trail in downtown New Britain and providing a connection over to the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail in Plainville. And because ultimately, honestly, if you look at the East Coast Greenway, it would be really nice to make a connection that doesn't go around the urban center of the state. So it's kind of a look at connecting Farmington Canal Heritage Trail actually all the way to Hartford. But this is just looking at this one gap of it. So we actually did a gap closure study, and in 2019 looked at this trail connection. BHP did it. Mark Jewell from BHP is an animal when it comes in terms of trying to come up with infrastructure, and he came up with an alignment that was 95% off trail at that time, or 95% off road. Some of it was roadside multi-use trail, but and me and CJ walked it with him. We were climbing over fences, over trees that have been down for like 20 years. He took us through so much stuff, and it was like, my God, he actually came up with this. So, and this became a project. And now it's, for us, it's a project that we have our first two phases of the Beeline Trail funded. One's going to be constructed this year. We have our third phase that gets us all the way to the Plainville line, funded for design. And it's it's going to be a great connection. It will extend the multi-use trail, the Fast Track multi-use trail that goes 5 miles into Newington, all the way another probably about 2.5 miles to the Plainville line. Next one. Okay. El Grasso Boulevard by CCSU. CJ already presented this. We took that 4-lane road and we made it a 2-lane road with buffered bike lanes. That just happened last year, but we're not done. So what we're looking at doing here is making this a 2-lane road and put in a side multi-use trail. And this isn't just this project in particular, it also closes the gap of the the trail, the Stanley Loop Trail that I just presented on to the Fast Track Multi-Use Trail in Newington. So this is a project we're actively pursuing funding on. We put in one funding request. We didn't get selected on that one, but I have no doubt this is going to be a funded project. It's a really good project, and it's going to help make this connection from the Fast Track Trail into our Stanley Loop Trail, and just really starting to make a off-road separated network that you could use for passive usage, you could use for transportation uses. I know as a commuter cyclist, more and more the routes I select, I have a lot of friends that have had issues with cars. The routes I select are the routes that have the most separated facilities, where I'm on a multi-use trail. I live in Burlington. I could get over to the Farm to Canal Heritage Trail, and I use that for my commute. It's like it's nothing better than being on a bike and being separated from cars. Keep going. John Downey Drive. CJ also talked about this one. This is one where we talked about really focusing on traffic calming. So this is a funded project. We're starting to design on it now. That road that was a 4-lane road that we created turned into a 3-lane road with a center left-hand turn lane and bike lanes. We're now looking, or it's now going to become a 2-lane road with a side multi-use trail. So we keep progressing on things, trying to build higher level infrastructure. This is something I think we have a benefit of. Been doing this for 10 years, that it's we're not just starting out. So, over time, this stuff kind of builds on itself. Keep going. All right. And this next slide. This is the other thing about bicycle infrastructure and your efforts as you're trying to become a bicycle friendly community. We're not going to really hit on this much, but it's this need to, we focus on the engineering, evaluation, and planning. That's what we do a lot of here, but it's the education, encouragement, equity, these other issues that really play such a big part of your success. Next slide. We just completed a new Complete Streets Master Plan, or it's actually probably a couple of weeks from being complete. But when the consultant we were working with, we're talking about our PED section. They just purely are talking about network, which everybody walks. You don't really need to focus as much on other things. But with cycling, just not everybody cycles. You need to encourage people. You need to educate people if you're going to get them on your infrastructure. And we've had a lot of partnerships. Like, we'll just blow through some of the things, but this added effort that you kind of need to go through is important. So I had this long-standing partnership with forming and partnering with Bike New Britain. This is their downtown New Britain storefront that's rented from the city at very low cost in a city parking garage. Keep going. We have partnership past couple of years with the Connecticut Department of Public Health, our own health department, our community service department, Bike New Britain, and Earn a Bike and Bike voucher programs. We give away a tremendous amount of bikes to people in need, kids. That's something we do more and more of. We're doing more of that this year. That comes along with the education component. These people that you see in this picture didn't have any experience really riding, cycling too much. Bike New Britain works with them on education, bike safety, just like how to work a bike, work on a bike. Keep going. This is an event we had at one point in time. It was a Be Bike Friendly effort that actually CJ led. We'll keep going though, because I know we're running short on time.
Another class we held, it's the League of American Bike Cyclists. They have a Traffic Skills 101. Now it's called the TS 101, I think, or they changed the acronym. But yeah, we hosted one of those here at Bike New Britain. We use an old vacant parking lot, set up some of the drills. It's the stuff I think we need to do to be a successful bike community, because we can put out the bike network, but now we need to educate people how to ride it and use it.
Keep going.
We host an annual bike rodeo every year. A lot of partnerships with the police department, the police athletic league, the health department, the mayor's office. We all come together. We plan this great bike rodeo event. We give away a bunch of bikes. We educate the kids and obstacle course. We do bike safety checks. It's a pretty cool event. We usually get a couple hundred kids there. We give away helmets too. The health department, usually through a grant, will give every kid a new helmet to really encourage them. And it's a pretty cool event we have right in the middle of downtown. We shut down Main Street and we set up the obstacle course right here on Main Street. So it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool event in June this year.
Hey guys, I'm gonna pop in here. We got it's 11 o'clock.
Okay.
So I want to be respectful of people's time. I don't want to cut us off, but we do have a couple of questions, and I know some people have to run. So if we can just kind of pop over to that quickly.
Sure.
One question that came up, and I think it's an important one, is talking about liability issues with some of the outside the box projects. Are you finding any liability issues with some of the facilities that might not completely meet the MUTCD as far as, the 5-foot bike lanes in either direction, things like that? And if so, and you're moving forward anyway, is that you have support from risk management, or can you just talk briefly about your thinking with moving forward on some things that might be a little outside the parameters?
Yeah, I'll just start that one. I think some of the things that we did early on, like 4-foot bike lanes, I don't regret a decision that we made. I don't. There's been nothing. We haven't had pushback. We haven't had. It's like, the biggest thing that we did that I thought was kind of a little outside the box was our head out angle parking, which is more historically or traditionally called back in angle parking. Especially the second phase where we made it like just standard size, not that hard to use. We thought, oh my God, people are never going to comply with this. People are going to have issues with it. We're going to get constant criticism. People understood how to use it immediately. We had traditional angle parking. The head out angle parking is favorable for cyclists. I don't know. We have not regretted any of our out of the box thinking. We haven't had pushback on it. It's been, I would not let your negative thoughts get in your way of taking your first step.
But I'll just add to, we haven't gone crazy out of the box. I think I look to NACTO, urban bike design, mostly. And if it's outside that, we kind of, other than maybe narrower bike lanes, like the contrafold bike lane, it wasn't new, it was just new here. So I looked to that, a lot of intersection treatments, maybe before DOT, and it's not in the MUTCD necessarily, but it wasn't totally crazy stuff. It was controlled outside the box.
All right. Also, some questions about crashes and speed data. Do you have any before and after, or just generally, have you seen a reduction since doing a lot of this, a lot of this work?
We don't have a lot of crash data. We don't have a lot of ridership data. We do not have a lot of crash data. New Britain, the thing is, when you do have more people riding, you're not going to necessarily reduce all of your crashes. I think we still have a lot of pedestrian issues in the city. We have a lot of people that just don't look, and they cross anywhere they could possibly want to cross without, no matter what infrastructure we put in place. But we don't have a lot of that data.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't do a lot of ridership in particular. We didn't do a lot of data collection prior. And nor we're doing it regardless, so we didn't really pay much attention.
And I think they're even talking about, because so much of this is traffic calming. Obviously, it's improving safe facilities for bikes, but by narrowing those roads and slowing folks down, I think they were just wondering if you had seen anything along those lines.
Yeah.
A specific question was about, in addition to shared turn lanes with sharrows, have you implemented any combined bike turn lanes? Maybe there was one that looks like you might have referenced one in one of the recent projects. And if so, if you have done those, what has been your experience with the combined turn lanes?
Well, we don't really know. I don't hear much feedback on those. I will say a lot of our bike lanes where we eliminated the 2 through lanes, And one of them became, we used to be a de facto right turn lane. A lot of motorists would use that bike lane, and we asked for the police department to help do a little bit of enforcement, and more so education than enforcement. Because here's this new facility, so it was kind of not a fail, but it took some time, and we don't have exact data, but just observationally, we've seen a lot more compliance. And for the shared turn pockets in bike lane with the sharrow and with the turn symbol, haven't seen any crashes there. We can't say that we track our data very well, though.
All right, and a follow-up question to that is, have you considered bike boxes in lieu of the combined turn lanes?
So I think that if we just finished a new master plan on complete streets that includes our bike infrastructure, and looking at intersections is definitely, we've been really focused on building our bike network, and we have addressed intersections, but really just started last year, really we started putting in green paint on our intersections. Like our focus now, or one of the primary focuses moving forward, are really looking at intersections and those conflict points. So that's probably part of our next phase of implementation.
Okay, great. Another question that came up is right-of-way issues. Have you faced issues for some of your projects, or are you still continuing on with? It looks like you guys have got some nice wide streets to start with. But have you faced any right-of-way issues, or due to lack of right-of-way? And can you talk about those if you have?
So we haven't yet, because all our on-street stuff has been almost exclusively all to curb, so it's already right away. Some of our trail projects, yes, we're starting to get into a little bit of right-of-way challenges with our trails, and I think we considered that in our design for like a beeline trail, for example, that's going to run east-west from the fast track to Plainville, and the Route 72 right away with DOT, we had conversations that we can utilize that for a trail. So we generally haven't had those challenges yet, but
we are, like CJ said, though, we just the multi-use trails, clearly our city engineer Rob Trotter he's overseeing the design of the Beeline Trail, and we had to have a local bank agree to have a section of trail go across their property, and we are doing a fair amount in the highway right away. So the trail project's definitely, that's more of a thing than our on-road network.
I think we will face those challenges, right? So we have a lot of trails in construction design, and I think there's some gaps, right? So if you look at our trail network, there's going to be some pieces where we really need to challenge the right of way now and make our connections going south, for example, and making these better connections. So I think we will have those bigger challenges, and we will start challenging parking. We can eliminate parking and do a side trail, but the attitude is still, let's build the ridership first and prove that we need it.
Sometimes parking.
Oh, go ahead.
Sometimes complete streets is all about balancing the needs of all the different users. Sometimes parking is the higher level need than like accommodating a cyclist.
Right.
So it's not like we consider all the users, and some of the users are people that are driving a car, and they need to be accommodated too.
Right. Yeah. A couple questions came up too about were any of these projects on state roads, or have you had to interact with the state to get some of this work done at all?
No. I won't tell you that we put in some bike lanes on state roads without the state being fully aware. We will not say that.
Don't ever admit that out loud, CJ.
I don't know how they got there.
So no, because I can't really edit that out. So no, you have not had to deal very much with the state so far. Thank you. And then another question was, well, kind of a statement and a question is, pedestrians and joggers will very often use these bike lanes. You have the image of the family walking. How do you approach the de facto shared use of some of those? Is just your experiences with that?
That's where there's not such a level of ridership. These are shared spaces on a roadway, and if a biker and a pedestrian or a jogger can't work that out amongst themselves, I don't think that's something that we need to get involved with to help regulate that. We're just trying to create space for everybody out there, And if the bike lane gets used by somebody other than a cyclist, I'm at this point, think that's not a concern for us. Maybe we'll get such amount of ridership down the road that we have to really start worrying about that. And I only hope that's the case.
And just so everybody knows, one of the questions I guess is for me. Yes, the video will be available. We'll be putting it up on our Complete Streets Information Exchange webpage. So we'll send an email out after this is over, just kind of linking you to that. All five four and soon to be 5 are out there, along with copies, PDFs of the presentations and any other resources that we discuss. One other question for you as we're wrapping things up here is, what was your evolving game plan for bike parking and associated racks and thinking on this?
You want to take it, CJ?
Sure. We have, I want to say, an extensive amount of bike racks through our downtown in particular, and then all the way throughout. We haven't gone to the bike locker avenue yet. And I think one of our fears is more vandalism. We don't find the secure space. We were going to put some in near CT Fast Track, a bike locker, fully bike is enclosed and locked. We did steer away from that. And we do have some inside parking, bike parking and parking garages near Fast Track, but we do have a lot of bike racks throughout downtown and then actually throughout the whole city, and we continually evaluate. We receive a request, we almost never turn it down to install a bike rack, whether in the city right away with city funds or coordinate with a business owner to get one installed.
There was also a question about e-bikes and use of e-bike facilities in New Britain. How is that happening and how is that working out?
We haven't really been faced with that too much at this point. And yeah, I mean, those tend to be more expensive bikes. I think a lot of our cycling is need-based, and a lot of that isn't going to be on an e-bike. But I'm sure they're out there more than either CJ or I know. But yeah, it hasn't been something we had to specifically deal with yet.
I've definitely seen a few e-bikes out there using our bike facilities. And again, we don't have high ridership, so it's really no conflict. And again, as Mark said, hopefully we get to the point where our ridership is that heavy where we now have to intervene and come up with something, but we welcome the e-bikes on the bike lanes at this point.
I know I remember, like, especially when we were first getting into this, seeing presentations from Roger Geller and saying Portland built their system for 10 years before they really saw any bump in, like, significant bump in ridership. So, and it's not like you just build it and it dramatically changes overnight, but it is changing all the time. But it's, yeah, we're still working on building ridership.
Yeah. All right, great. There was one quick follow-up regarding the kind of shared use bike lanes. Are you doing anything or are we trying to encourage pedestrian bikes to be going in opposite directions, different sides of the street? So, in those facilities where they're sharing them, are you seeing enough to do things with signage or to encourage people to follow those rules of the road, so to speak?
We have over 200 miles of sidewalks in the city. I mean, there's very few locations. That one picture that we showed, that's not the norm. That's kind of a rare instance. But there's a very robust sidewalk network in the city. So we're not seeing that specific issue happening very often where it's coming up as a problem.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Thanks for that. Okay, I think that pretty much takes care of the questions in the chat. Thanks to those of you who kind of stuck it out with us, which it looks like by the numbers are the vast majority of you. So thank you for your extended time. Thank you so much, Mark and CJ, for your help in presenting this information. And, we really thank you for your time. We thank everybody for their time. And as I mentioned, we will be in touch with the link once it's up on the website. And, we encourage you to reconnect next month with us for our next one.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for joining, everybody.
Thank you so much.